All right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining Track 4, Science and Technology Innovation. I'm Tammy Johnston from Ambry Genetics, and I will be your host for the last breakout of the summit. As a reminder, this track is being live streamed, and I would like to welcome our remote attendees and remind everyone to download our mobile app to use some of our highlighted features like live Q&A. Our last breakout session will be presented by Peter Binkley, designer, and Monica Jones, president and co-founder of the Brain Recovery Project. They will be leading our session, Improving Quality of Life, 3D Printing Assistive Devices. Please join me in welcoming them.
Thanks. Hi there, good afternoon. How's everybody? Great. My name is Monica Jones. I'm the president and co-founder of the Brain Recovery Project, Childhood Epilepsy Surgery Foundation. This is my oldest son, Henry, my first son, and what's special about Henry is that Henry has half a brain. I should rewind a little bit. He was not born with half a brain. He was born with a whole brain, but the left half was massively deformed, and it caused drug-resistant seizures. So at the age of 2 months old, 3 months old actually, after a phenobarbital-induced coma, and a cocktail of 5 medications would not stop his seizures, we had to have the left half of his brain removed. I did not know you could do that. I'm sure a lot of you here didn't know that too. So one of the side effects of having the left half of your brain removed is that you get some physical impairments. So I'm going to have everybody stand up for a second, and we're going to simulate the visual field cut, which is the first thing. The left half of the brain controls what your eyes see from the right side. So if you look to the left, close your right eye. Now keep your whole head to the left, but look forward, just your eyes. So that's how my son sees. He has no vision from midline to the right. If you were to remove the right half of your brain, look to the right, close your left eye, keep your head pointing to the right, look forward, and that's what you see if you've had the right half of your brain removed. So another thing is we all learned that the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, the right side controls the left. That's mostly true. The left side of the brain controls about 85 to 90% of the function on the right side of your body, but you still have about 10% connections coming from the same side of your brain. 8% controls your lower extremities, and about 2% controls your upper extremities. So where we see the most impairments after children who have had hemispherectomy is they lose all the fine motor function in their hand opposite the removed hemisphere. So if you could play the video now, this is a child who had the right half of his brain removed at Johns Hopkins, and you can see here how he's trying to remove these blocks, put them in. He's doing a really great job. But you can see how that fine motor is really impaired, and it's tough for him. So the more I learned about working with our community after we started our nonprofit, we started to fund some research and look into things to see if we could improve this hand function. And it's extremely hard because the connections just aren't there. It's almost like the more therapy you do, you really don't get that far. So a friend of mine called me and she said, you know what, I'm watching TV right now, and I'm watching this commercial about these really cool makers that are putting together 3D printed prosthetic hands for children born without limbs or for children who have had an appendage blown off in the war or during an accident. And she said, you know, I wonder if you guys could do something with them. So, you know, special needs moms were a little bit impatient. And I started watching and I thought, you know what, I wonder if they could put together some sort of a hand exoskeleton or something so that our kids could just grab. And I reached out to Enable, and I did it just through Google. I didn't even email or anyone. I just got into a Google group, and I posted my question. I said, hey, you know what, you guys? I have an idea, and it might be kind of crazy, but what if instead of a prosthetic device, you started to put together this hand exoskeleton that parents could 3D print with either a machine they have at home or at Office Depot, because it's actually really easy to get 3D printed things at Office Depot or Staples. A 3D printer is only about $500 now. And I wonder if you guys could do for my community the same thing you've done for kids who were born without limbs. So through that, we met Peter Binkley. And Peter's going to take over from here to talk about his journey with Enable and the prosthetic hands he's created there and what he's doing for our kids today.
So I'm going to tell you a story today about 3D printing, low-cost assistive technology in the age of communication. It's also a story about human kindness and human potential. Our story starts on May 7th of 2011 in South Africa, where a carpenter by the name of Richard Van Ass lost 4 fingers of his right hand in a table saw accident. He soon learned that replacement fingers, in spite of their functional limitations, can cost from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. So Richard decided to manufacture his own fingers. As he researched ideas, he stumbled upon a YouTube video made by an American man who had created a pair of giant mechanical theatrical prop hands. Meet Ivan Owen and his wife Jen Owen. Ivan Owen is an inventor and maker of wondrous and miraculous things. And his wife Jen Owen is a photographer and a writer and a blogger, and you'll see her later in the story. She has a very big part in this adventure. So after communicating with each other, Richard and Ivan, over several months, Ivan actually traveled to South Africa to help Richard in the construction process. And you can see the device that was the fruit of their labor, called the RoboFinger. Richard's wearing it there. It's a mechanical device. As they worked, they shared their progress on a Facebook blog so that other people could learn about this story and follow the development of their device. Well, a woman in South Africa named Yolandi asked the two men if they might be willing to develop a device to give fingers to her son, Liam, who was born without fingers on his right hand. The two men agreed to help and began to prototype devices for this little kid. Now, prototyping with traditional tools, traditional manufacturing processes takes a lot of time and a lot of human energy. You can see that they cut and drilled and riveted sections of aluminum to make fingers for Liam's prosthesis. But they did have some success, as you can see Liam using this little robotic hand. So after working together for some time, for a couple of weeks, Ivan returned to the United States, and a coworker of his found out about the project he was working on, and she suggested that they might try manufacturing this hand using a rapid prototyping machine, otherwise known as a 3D printer. 3D printers in 2012 had come down in price a lot. They were consumer-level 3D printers, which meant that they cost a couple $1,000 instead of what you expect in an engineering firm, $40,000 and up. So Ivan actually contacted MakerBot. He sent them a letter telling them about the project and asking them if they might be willing to donate a couple of their printers to the project. And to their delight, MakerBot sent one machine to Ivan and another machine to Richard to support the project. So Ivan learned to script objects, to model 3D objects, to make the components for the hand using an open source modeling program called OpenSCAD. You can download it online. It's free. And what they found is that the 3D printers and using 3D files greatly increased the rate of iteration for their designs. So it increased the speed of development for the hand. And what they developed was something that they called a robo-hand. And you can see a few different iterations of it in its development here. And for Liam, it worked really well. And then instead of trying to patent the device, they uploaded it to Thingiverse. Thingiverse is a repository. It's a free repository of things that you can find online. It's Thingiverse. You can Google it. And published it under an open source license. And what this means is that anybody in the world can download these 3D files and print themselves a robo-hand. Well, MakerBot got very excited about this. They had provided the 3D printers for the project, and so what they did was produce a video. They went to South Africa and interviewed Richard and Liam and a few of the other kids who were using robo-hands, and they produced a very nice video, and a lot of people saw it. It's a really great video. It's really inspiring to see how people are helping each other. But I think what's even more inspiring is if you look at the comments below the video, there were a lot of people who were leaving comments like, "Hey, I have access to a 3D printer. I would be willing to print a robo-hand for someone who could use it, and I'd be willing to do it for free." So enter John Shull, research scientist at Rochester Institute of Technology's Magic Center. That's Media, Arts, Gaming, Interaction, and Creativity. He saw the video, and he saw the comments below the video, and in that he saw an opportunity. So he left his own comment. "Okay, MakerBotters, if you're willing to receive inquiries, put yourself on the map." And he created a little map here that people could put markers on, and it started to fill up. And that's a recent image of the map. So as you can see, we have volunteers all over the world. He also started a Google Plus community where people could share ideas and help each other out and post if they need help. And he called it Enable. E like email, right? Electronic, and enable because it's all about assistive technology. That community has grown steadily, and it's now more than 10,000 people all around the world. So this is me and my son. We made our first device in the summer of 2013. I was a high school foreign language teacher, and Peregrine was in high school, finishing high school. I lived in Virginia, Peregrine in Seattle. So he sent me a link to this video, and I got really excited. I almost couldn't believe it. Here was a little boy on the other side of the planet who had a right hand very much like my son's left hand. So that summer when he came to visit me for the summer, we bought a 3D printer. Oh, here's Liam using his device to catch a ball and pick up a pencil. So we bought a 3D printer for $800. And he came out and we started tinkering with it, trying to make it work. And after some time, we were able to print the components for this device here called the Snap Together Robo Hand. we didn't really know how to manufacture or how to assemble it, right? Because right here you can't really put this on, right? So you have to figure out a way to make it fit on a person, right? So we looked around the house and in the community and local convenience stores and things like that to try to find materials to put it together. This is the first hand, and it's a video. If you would cue that up. And yes, the cables are weed whacker line, in case you're wondering. So we were very pleased with this. And then at the end of the summer, he went back to Seattle. I went back to Virginia, and I left a comment. I went back to the Thingiverse page and left a comment thanking the designers for sharing the design so that we could manufacture this. You can see my comment there, and the next day I get an email from none other than Ivan Owen. So he asked me if I had any images of the device that we'd created, and so I linked him to the video. And he got back to me. He was really excited. He really liked how we had assembled the device and how well we had gotten it to work. Peregrine actually got to meet up with Ivan in November, and Jen Owen took these pictures. Now the device was really cool, but Peregrine could immediately identify some issues with it. For one thing, the grip strength wasn't very good. He wanted something with better grip strength, and he was breaking fingers at an alarming rate, which is fine if they're plastic fingers. You just print new fingers. It's really quite easy. So I printed him a whole box of fingers, and sent them and sent them off to Seattle, and then I started learning how to do 3D design. I used an open source modeling program called Blender, and we made a lot of changes. And after quite a number of changes, we had something that we could call a unique design, which we named the Talon Hand. Actually, Jen named it. She said, "Hey, why don't we call it the Talon Hand? That'd be cool." So here it is, and 3D files are really small. So I was actually able to email these files to Ivan, who printed them and put together a Talon Hand for Liam, which is pretty cool. There's a missing image here. It's him on his bicycle with his hand. So I thought that was pretty awesome. He's my hero. So this is January of 2014. Jen begins the Enabling the Future website, and this is a resource for people to learn about Enable Story and find out about devices that are being produced in different places in the world. Also a good place for resources, so you can learn about the different devices and what they're good for and how to put them together, where to find instructions. Jen also, it's not just the website. She didn't know what she was getting into. She gets a lot of inquiries. She helps plan different meetings. She's responded to thousands of emails and connects people with other people to help them out. And so we published the Talon Hand in January of 2014, again with an open source license, of course. And since then, several people in different places around the world have printed and manufactured for themselves Talon Hands. Now, Peregrine was my first client, I guess, although he was as much a designer as a recipient. You can see him here with his latest device. This is So I designed the osprey hand, but he added claws to it, which he says not only look cool, but they're actually pretty useful, although they do make airport security kind of nervous. That's him there. This handsome young man was my second client. His name is Odysseus. Everybody calls him Odie for short. His mom asked for help on the eNable website, and I volunteered to help him. Now, I never actually met Odie in person, and I may never meet Odie in person. The thing is, his family lives in Greece, which is pretty far away from my home in Virginia. So of course, that begs the question, how am I going to make a device that will properly fit somebody without ever meeting them? So I asked his parents to take photos. Take a photo from above with a ruler in the field, and a photo from the side with a ruler in the field. And then I was able to actually take those images and bring them into the Blender world, into the Blender field. And here I've modeled the Odie's arm, and I was actually able to model the device right around his anatomy in the 3D modeling program. I then printed off the components and added leather and screws and straps and slightly thinner weed whacker line. And I published it on Thingiverse, again open source, named it after its first user, called it the Odie hand, and then I put it in the mail. And as you can see, it's a good fit. So the implications for this methodology are actually really exciting. This idea that in order to get a properly fitting device, you need to meet with a specialist who will take measurements, take castings, is really no longer necessary. In fact, the only thing that a person needs in order to submit measurements is a ruler and a camera phone. And it's even more exciting than that because the 3D files are very small, so they can be emailed too. So you can have a person in one place in the world take measurement photos and then submit them, and then somebody somewhere else in the world can take those photos, bring them into Blender, and transpose different designs and choose the best design and then scale that design to fit the person properly. And in some cases, we've even been able to modify an existing design to fit a patient's unique anatomy and then send the file to a person close to the end user who can print it local to that user and provide them a device free of charge. And if you don't think you can do this, you're wrong. It's actually pretty easy. I've got, all you need to know is my name. Get on YouTube and search for Peter Binkley. And I've got a tutorial. It's 21 minutes long. It's 4 videos that will teach you everything from how to take the photos at the beginning all the way through the fitting process, the virtual fitting process. And at the end, you'll know what files you need and what scale to print them at. So there you go. We've been able to give away devices at several events. This is our first eNable conference, Prosthetists Meet Printers. It was in the fall of 2014. We had a lot of people there, and we assembled over 140 devices with the help of kids born with limb differences and their families. Monica was there. She gave a presentation. Also, the Scouts of America, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, have assembled hands at these build events. It's a great service project, and it's a great educational project. Actually, a lot of schools have also gotten involved in using eNable hands in their curricula. And this was serious fun. We teamed up with a group called Marvel Universe Live. and we met with stage actors. It's a stage show where they have live actors who are Marvel characters, and the kids and their families also came, and we assembled devices for them. That's a Nick Fury, right? You know, anybody here Marvel fans? Right? Storm. We have, through build events and with schools and individual volunteers helping people out, we've been able to provide over 2,000 devices to people in over 40 countries around the world. And that's actually just what we know about. The number could actually be a lot higher than that. After all, anyone can go to Thingiverse and download the files and find the instructions and make for themselves a mechanical hand. So the actual number of devices out there being used could be much higher, but we'll never know. And I'm okay with that. So by now you've noticed that the hands that we make don't really look like hands. They look like something that a robot or a superhero might wear. When we ask kids what color they want, they never ask for skin color. They want red or blue or green or purple or silver, and I actually think that's really great, because if you make a hand that looks like a human hand, it's kind of like hiding. And if you know these kids, they've done enough hiding, so they know what they want. They want something that. That's fun, and these, technically they're type 1, class 1 medical devices. That's how the FDA classifies them. They're external prosthetics, but they look like toys, and kids love them because of it, because it gives them an opportunity to celebrate the thing that makes them different. Sorry, slide missing. When they get their, when they get their device, they always walk a little taller, So in June of 2014, Monica was in touch with John Shull, and John actually asked a mechanical engineering student who was working in the eNable lab at RIT if she might be willing to try to develop a device that could help hemispherectomy patients develop or regain some use of their paralyzed hand. This is Elizabeth Jackson, and she worked on a project she called the Airy Arm, worked on it for a couple years through various iterations. And she did have some success with her device. And when she handed the project over to me about a year ago, I wanted to try to make something that had a lower profile, was going to be easier to wear, maybe underneath clothing. I also wanted to make something that would be easier to manufacture. This is a little challenging to make at home. And so easier to wear, easier to use. So this was my first concept. I never actually manufactured this because there are a lot of problems with this design. The first is that it would be actually very challenging to manufacture. I had the idea of 3D printing molds that I would then cast silicone in to make a soft glove. But anybody here done that? I didn't think so. See, that's the problem, right? Oh, you did? Okay. Well, no, that's not good enough odds there. All right. I didn't really know what I was doing when I got started. It's been a learning process. So this is an image of the brain of somebody who has had hemispherectomy surgery. But I also think of this image as being my brain when I started this project. The dark area representing my understanding of the population I was working with. So this is my test pilot. Her name's Cameron Mott, and I met her, and my first design suddenly became a lot less feasible. But she's been a great sport, and it's been a very humbling process. What I learned when I met with her is that there is no innervation distal to the elbow. I didn't understand that going into this, and that was the big lesson when I first met her. So it was pretty daunting, I guess. So when I got home after a few days, I started thinking about the problem, and I got to thinking about carpal tunnel mechanics. The fact that the muscles that flex your fingers all anchor to the fronts of your bones, and the muscles that extend your fingers all anchor to the back of your forearm, and all those tendons pass through a little hole called the carpal tunnel, right? So that when you extend your wrist, your fingers tend to close, and when you flex your wrist, your fingers tend to open, right? And so the idea was that I would try to take advantage of the muscle contracture that occurs over time. Over time, these muscles they do harden and contract so that the fingers don't respond well to external force. So I was trying to use that fact to advantage. So this is I was calling the project the frog arm. Here's here's us taking a casting of Cameron's hand. I used alginate and plaster there. She was such a good sport. I had to sit there for 15 minutes with her hand in what felt like Jell-O. So this is the concept for version 0.2 of the frog arm. It's got an elastic band on the back here that keeps her wrist in an extended position, and then when she extends her elbow, she has control of her elbow. When she extends her elbow all the way, it pulls a cord, which then flexes her wrist and would allow her hand to open. So when I manufactured it, and so this is me in the prototyping process. Lots and lots of printing, and printing of stencils too. You print stencils to help in the assembly process. And this is Cameron trying out the version 0.2. It doesn't fit properly, so that was a problem. The thumb hole was a little bit too close to the plate that goes on the back of the hand. But the biggest problem was that if you put an elastic here, it generates a lot of traction between the hand component and the wrist component. So we had to do something about that. So here's version 0.3. I put a hinge here at the wrist so there wouldn't be traction between the two components, and so that the elastic force would be restricted to a useful direction, right? And also I made the elastics infinitely adjustable so that Cameron could change the tension on the elastics. And it did fit her properly. It was comfortable, and she seemed to enjoy wearing it. And she brought it home with her, but it didn't end up really working properly. And the reason for that is that her hand and her wrist and fingers are already in almost total flexion, so that you can't really flex her wrist enough to open the fingers. You definitely feel a difference. Right? If you flex her wrist a little bit more, her grip loosens, and if you extend her wrist, then her fingers definitely tighten. But we weren't able to achieve enough additional flexion in order to open the fingers. So this is the next. It's totally different. The next design, and I'm working on manufacturing it now. I've got it here. There's a thermoform piece of plastic that goes around the palm, and then there's a little leather cot here. There will be 4 that go over each finger, and then and this is a nylon tube here, and this joint crosses the elbow. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to have a wrist strap, and I'll just keep going until I make it work. We designers, we're really good at failing. We fail a whole lot before we ultimately succeed. It just comes with the territory. But like the area arm and other enabled designs, this will be an open source project. So when we have a working device, we'll publish the files online. We'll have instructions for how to scale it to fit different people, and to print it and manufacture it. You should be able to make it for less than $50. There's not an enabled device that I know of that costs more than $50 to buy all the hardware for. And if you don't have access to a 3D printer, of course, I have a few friends who might be able to help you out with that. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a question that came through on the mobile app. Wondering if you could talk a bit more with using these devices for children who have limited use in one hand, not necessarily a prosthetic need, but more for function. How does that work?
So for kids who have some use?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just limited function.
Yeah.
That's sort of what we're trying to do with the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
This is the community that we represent.
Here, let me.
The reason Cameron is challenging is because her hand is already in contracture, which can happen over time. It's a severe upper motor neuron injury, so if you don't night splint and have a lot of stretch over the years, the hand will contract just like it would after a stroke. Some of our other children, though, have more function. So as you saw from the video, the other boy, he can do this and he can pull. We have children with a lot more function than that. Children with cerebral palsy, children who have had stroke but don't require surgery to stop seizures, adults with stroke. All these are kind of the people we have in mind that do have some function. So I think we gave you the most challenging kid to work with. So one of the things we'd like to do is just sort of bring more children into the mix for Peter to tinker with and see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm really just starting with one patient, with one client, and if we can get it to work for her, then we'll start sizing it for different patients and for people of differing abilities too. So,
I know that you're doing this for kids, but how often do you have to change it as they grow to get a new one?
Very often. Kids outgrow these devices like they outgrow shoes. And that's really the beauty of this, is that, until now, if a kid wanted to use a prosthesis, it could cost as much as a car. Imagine having to buy a car every time you buy shoes for your kid, right? So yeah, the beauty of this is that it's so cheap. These cost us, about as much as fairly inexpensive shoes to produce. So yeah, we have kids go through several devices, and when they outgrow one, they can actually donate it to another kid. So So yeah, and that's it almost seems like 3D printing was made for prosthetics, because it's so easy to customize and scale and make it fit different size and shape people and people with different kinds of limb differences. So yeah.
Are there other questions? Oh, of course. You also need a mic.
So my son, Dylan, he's 11 years old. He as well has had the left side of his brain removed. He has unspecified epilepsy. He also went into a medically induced coma, and when he came out, this was in 2011. So when he came out of his medically induced coma, he had developed clonus while he was there. Same thing, tend to have like where he won't use his hands, can't see peripheral vision. But my question is, with his clonus, he used to be able to bear weight on his legs and want to stand. Have you tried to do anything as far as like, because he wants to curl his toes in, so he won't keep his toes like flat to want to stand up. Have you tried to do anything as far as like with feet prosthetics or anything like that?
I wish I could say I have, but I haven't. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I think generally in the field of prosthetics, you have prosthetists who work upper limbs and prosthetists who work lower limbs, and I think it's because they're so different. I mean, they're really very, very different. And Enable generally steers clear of lower limb devices because the consequences for failure can be catastrophic. Whereas for an upper limb, if it fails, you drop the thing that you're holding. I mean, it could be catastrophic. Maybe you're holding a pot of molten lead or something, but usually you're not, right? So that's probably not me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's more of a spasticity issue that's coming from the brain not sending the appendages the right message, and that's absolutely not anything that we would, as an organization, be interested in doing it, or that Enable should, because it's really medical. It requires an orthotist to determine what the proper placement would be, and probably drugs like diazepam or Botox to loosen up that message. I'm happy to talk to you about that offline. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. My son's right leg is almost completely in contracture. Right, but the toes, it's the brain is not getting the message to the toes. So no, this is more just a simple device to help the kids, grab something so they can ride a bike or a canoe, row a canoe with the kids that have the Talon hand and the other hands. They're just really looking for something that they can throw a ball, but absolutely nothing that would correct a medical issue like a contracture. That would not be what we're interested in doing. Yes. There's a question.
Hi, thank you for coming. The glove itself, is it any type of conditions, whereas, say arthritis, would it work with arthritis? Or possibly?
We don't know yet.
No.
He's still trying to figure it out, yeah.
We really don't know. Although we do have a number of people who have paralysis for other reasons that are very excited about this project. I think that it does that when we have a successful device, it will have applications for other populations.
Okay. What's the mobility of it moving?
It opens the fingers. That's what we've got. So that's what I'm working on right now, is something that is going to open the fingers. The fingers are naturally in a contracture that's completely closed. Okay. So if we can get the fingers to open, then the user should be able to open their hand, move it over an object, and then release their elbow, so then their hand would close again over the object.
Okay, so does that mean if a person couldn't move their hands at all or have problems moving their hands physically, or what? Is it total disabled, or?
Well, it would have to depend on their specific ability.
Okay.
If they're able to open their hands but not close them, then this device wouldn't help them. But if they're able to close their hand and not open it, then this device would be helpful to them.
Okay, and would this work with adults also?
I'm sorry?
Would this work with adults also?
Adults, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you just have the models for the children right now? Or?
Yeah, but any of these designs can be scaled. I mean, they're big kids, and sure, yeah. I mean, we can go. Yeah, we can make it as big as you like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're from. I mean, I talked to you earlier. You're from out of the United States. Where have you been, as far as in the States, to market this product yet?
It's not for sale. It's not a product we want to commercialize. It's, I think, the overall, disruptive innovations, the term. As a mother, I can't afford the $100,000 device that's being developed at Seoul University, which is this beautiful robotic exoskeleton that you can slip on, and it's just lovely. But it's, I don't know about any of you, but I don't have that kind of money. I just want something for kids so they can make it real quick and maybe hang on to a Coke and have a sip. Because for our community, for the world of cerebral palsy, stroke, even for an adult, that's a really big deal. So these are these incredible people that are makers and designers, and they're coming up with these ideas. Mm-hmm. It's not commercialized. It's on this website, and once we come up with that idea, you make it, you download it, you give it away. It's absolutely not something that is going to be for sale.
Yeah, and generally our volunteers, we pay for our own filament. I mean, the plastic is like $3 or $5 for a hand, mm-hmm. and the hardware, like I said, is generally less than $50, and the users get the devices for free. So.
Okay, so it's a self-made. You just order it, get a 3D printer, and make it yourself.
You could, yeah, okay. Yeah. And 3D printer you can buy for $500, or even I've seen them for $300. You get a $300 3D printer and make yourself a device. Yeah, yeah. But if you don't have $300, then you can ask. I've got 10,000 good friends who could who could help you out with that.
So this is something you just pro bono, an idea that you have, which is great,
Yes.
Because I've talked to patients that have to pay thousands of dollars for those type of mechanical devices, which is ridiculous, and who can afford it?
Well, we do benefit from it. Mm-hmm. We feel great.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. It's a great idea. I really love it. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions in the back here? Okay.
Hi. Have you toyed with maybe the idea of being able to extend and then kind of quickly lock the fingers open with some sort of thing on the wrist that you can maybe tap and then, say high five someone or something like that?
That's a great idea.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Good. Sure.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think you could do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
Very cool stuff.
Well,
where all do you do the Enable Builds gatherings?
Well, let's see. There was Microsoft is doing one. I think right now they've got a group of volunteers in Seattle mm-hmm. who are doing a build-a-thon event. And there are probably things that are happening that we don't even know about because, like I said, a lot of schools are involved with this. Mm-hmm. They download the files and they work on them and they'll provide devices for somebody local in their community and make it part of their curriculum. And these kids get get some design and engineering experience, and they get a sense of really helping somebody with their skills. So it's very rewarding for the kids.
Right. Thank you. So with that, thank you so much for incredible talk, great information. And this concludes this afternoon's breakout sessions. But before we head out, if you can all jump onto the mobile app and take our brief survey of this session. And we would also like to invite you back to the main ballroom at 5:30 for a pre-reception sponsored by Vertex, followed by the Rare Champion of Hope Awards and reception this evening. Thanks again, and let's give Peter and Monica one last round of applause.